Hello, fantasy sports owners, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Sports News and World Report. I'm your host, Brian Lyles. Today is a very interesting show. We're going to focus on women and fantasy sports. How many play it, how many don't, how many like it, how many don't, that type of scenario. But first, we have our fantasy sports game update with one of our lovely fantasy sports world girls.
Hello, fantasy sports owners. I'm Andrea with your fantasy sports games update. Is your fantasy football team not producing the way it should? Don't worry, NFL.com has a game that will boost up your spirit as well as your point totals. The game is called NFL Playbook Challenge. It's a free game where your objective is to see if your selections of players will perform their best in reality games. Each week you must select 3 players: a quarterback, a running back, and a receiver. The players you've chosen will earn fantasy points for every passing, rushing, and receiving yards they accumulate during that week's game. For example, if Rams wide receiver Torrey Holt caught 110 receiving yards and rushed for 47 yards, his total yardage count will be 157 yards, which equals 157 points. Now you're asking, what if my player is a rookie? Well, take for instance Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan. If he throws 217 yards and rushed for 25 yards, his total yards will be 242. But his fantasy sports points will be, you got it, 484, because any rookie you pick will receive double points. And if you want to earn more points, 4 times this season you'll earn a chance for double bonus points. This is where all your players' fantasy points will double. So, if you pick Torrey Holt with his 157 points, his points will double to 214, and Matt Ryan's 484 will double up to 968. Now I've told you all the great stuff about this game, but before I give you the bad, a reminder to make your selections at least 1 hour before kickoff of the early games. Okay, now the bad stuff you need to know. First, you can only pick a player once. So if you chose Peyton Manning, Terrell Owens, and Clint Portis, and they didn't do as well as you thought, then sorry buddy, you can't pick them again. And second, you'll not be receiving points. If you didn't make a player selection, the player you've chosen does not play for any reason, the player does not perform any rushing, passing, or receiving action, and lastly, the game is either canceled, postponed, or rescheduled. Now that you've got all the info in your playbook, then go on and log on to NFL.com and select that right winning combination. I'm Andrea, and your fantasy has been updated. See you next time.
Reality check. High gas prices, an unwinnable war, housing foreclosures, the fantasy, you not voting. You heard this many times, that this is the most important election in our country's history. So please register and vote on November 4th so that you don't continue living in fantasy land.
I'm your host, Brian Lyles. Today with me is Miss Carol Watson. She is a very vibrant, energetic fantasy sports owner. Granted, as you can tell, she's a lovely lady here. I would like to first get into the fact of women in fantasy sports because it's intriguing because I'm in a league, and granted, we're in the same league. And yes, folks, I'll admit the fact she beat me currently. A lot of women are getting into this. And first off, what made you get into it? How did it feel to be into fantasy sports?
Okay, the first time I did a fantasy sports league was in 1996. I was working on a project at NASA, and some NASA geeks actually had a sports league. And I used to talk to one of my coworkers a lot about sports. So when the draft was about to come up, he asked me if I was interested in joining. So I did. And I was pretty intimidated because that first draft was a live draft. So, you know, we actually went to a bar and I was the only girl. So.
Now, getting into that, was it baseball, football, or?
It was football.
Football. Have you tried any other sports besides football? Let's get into that a little bit.
No.
Just football?
Just football.
Why is that?
Well, because it's time consuming, and a football game is only once a week, and the season is only 16 games and a couple of playoff games. So it's only a couple of months. If basketball, there are too many games.
Right.
Baseball, there's way too many games, and I don't watch it on TV.
Okay. Now, how successful have you been in these leagues? I mean, since 1996, 12 years. Have you been successful?
Yeah, I've been successful.
Okay. Now, let's put this in a different aspect. Your first entry, when you said your first time playing in '96, how did the guys receive? How did they accepted you?
Well, they first talked about me when I drafted, when we were at the draft, because they were like, why is she here? And then I guess the first couple of games I didn't know about, putting your bench players in and all of that. And so I lost, and I was upset. And they, would send me emails, about better luck next time or whatever. But then towards the end of the season, I got the hang of it, and I actually beat some people. So, then it changed. They were like, oh, wait a minute. She knows what she's doing.
So was it, well, let's say this, when you became successful, how did their mood change? How did the guys, did they say like, okay, she's is she one of the gang, or is it still sort of like, okay, we got to beat this girl?
I knew that they wanted to beat me. They didn't want to be the one that week to lose to me. But it was competitive and it was friendly. And it wasn't, it wasn't mean or mean-spirited or anything like that.
Okay. The trash talking. I know you when I asked you to come on, you said, and also invited you into the league that set up. You love trash talking.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I want to admit something here. I did some trash talking in other leagues before with women, and one time I at first I thought it was a nice kind of joke, because I was in women that we had. I went in there, beat them all during about a 4-week span, did some trash talking, and the next thing you know, I get bombarded by one of them just basically chewing me out, saying he's like, no, I was wrong and all that stuff. Granted, I thought it was a joke. I talked to another lady and said, did you feel offended with what I said? And she said, it was kind of mean-spirited, but I didn't really take offense to it, but I kind of know where she's coming from. So with the trash talking, has there anything that you've experienced where it's kind of gone too far, where you felt kind of offended, or?
Well, knowing that trash talking is part of the game all the time, and it can go kind of far, I don't take it personally. And if I do, I try to come back with something personal as well, in response. But no, I haven't experienced anything where, the trash talking has gone beyond the game. If it was a personal attack, then yes, I'd be a little upset and offended. But, to have a comment about the game or, somebody I said or my player didn't do well, I wouldn't have a problem with that. In fact, I'm kind of concerned because this league doesn't talk.
I know. I try to start something during our match, but I think a lot of, like you said, it's a bit time consuming. And surprisingly enough, even most of these guys that are in the league are watching the game or gone on to the game, because one of our panelists who's also in the league, Ulysses, I know he highly goes to all the Redskin games, so I know he was probably out cheering the Redskins on that particular week. But let me ask you this: has any other women come into your league now, or are you still the only one?
In the league that I'm in with you, no.
Okay.
I do know of one other woman that is in the league, but she's in a whole nother league. And I didn't find out until, you know, all the leagues were formed. So, you know, I couldn't join hers. But so we just compared notes.
Okay. So is it, you know, what do you feel comfortable, or better yet, do you feel like, you know, trying to get that camaraderie of more women coming into, you know, in leagues that you've kind of already been involved in?
Definitely. You know, definitely when you can talk about the game and, you know the stats, you know the players, you know the strategy and things like that, you know, then it makes it more interesting. One of the things that I like about fantasy is that you get to see other players. You know, I'm a Redskins fan, so, you know, I know everything Redskins. I know most things Dallas because I don't like them because, you know, I want them to lose.
Unless they're on your team, see?
Yeah, unless you have, and actually I have the Dallas defense, so in some weird perverse thing, I have to hope that Dallas defense shuts down the opposing team and that Felix Jones gets a touchdown.
Right.
But you know, other than that, you know, having fantasy players from other teams, I get to know about, you know, something that's going on in San Diego, something that's going on in the Jets, you know, things like that, other than Brett Favre. Because, you know, when you watch ESPN, all you see is Brett Favre. And there are actually, you know, 52 other people on the team. So.
Okay. Well, let me ask you about this. You probably met some of the wives of some of the leagues that you've been in. Have they had any interest of being involved, or do you get the sense it feels like, hey, that's my husband's thing, let him do his thing?
Actually, I've never met any wives.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I haven't, and their husbands are safe with me.
Okay. That's for an Oprah show or something like that. But actually, what I'm trying to get at is the sense of a lot of women, you know, I hear a lot of women, it's just like, look, that's my husband's thing, that's my boyfriend's thing, let him do that thing. The league that I'm in, there's a husband and wife team who are a two-time champion. I beat you last year. But the thing is, you know, do you feel like, you know, should women, you know, who are, you know, with husbands and boyfriends, should they try to come in and learn or play? Or do you feel like, that's a conflicting interest, that's my man's thing, let him do his thing?
Well, I think it's like with the football pool. You know, this is like the football pool with more information. If you know, a lot of offices would have the football pool, and the women would pick teams because they like the colors. Or
see, I got a commercial for that. See, yeah, go ahead.
You know, really, I mean, you know, or they liked a particular player because he was cute, you know, with his helmet off. You know, whatever the reasons are that women like particular teams. But a lot of times the women would actually win. And, you know, then the men would be upset because they knew all the stats, they knew the injury report, they knew everything. But when it came down to picking the teams, the women actually did better. And they didn't know anything about it. So, you know, with fantasy, you have to know a little bit about, you know, a player and their ability and their team and, you know, the matchup. But you could still, you know, with the automatic, you know, draft, you can still just get some players and play along, and your team could win, and you don't know anything about it.
Right. Let's say this: is it a good idea to have the couples work together? Because the league, why you say that?
I am too competitive to actually have somebody that I like. No way.
Well, let's say this. Let's put it this way. In these two aspects, going against them and then working together with them. Okay, first going against, now if your boyfriend, was in the same league with you and all that stuff, would you be okay with that?
I would be more comfortable. We could be in the same league on like Sportsline or AOL, you know, one of the sports companies, but not in the same league.
Why is that?
Because then it would be too personal. For me.
Okay. Now, what about, let's say, you working together? Is that a good thing? Because, you know, the couple that, again, I beat you last year.
Yeah, but I beat you.
You're by yourself. But what I'm saying is, but what I'm trying to get at is, do you feel like, granted, you know, her story, I kind of wish, you know, she was here to help explain it. I mean, I've been with her, been in the same league for about a good 5 years now. And before she met her husband, you know, she was basically the doormat of the league. And then she, you know, her husband, they get engaged, got married, all that stuff. And she wins the, you know, she gets to 3 Super Bowls and she wins 2 titles. And I mean, she was like, you know, everything's changed. And I'm trying to see it as like, is it a good thing? And I've dealt with couples before. She was the second one. The first one was, you know, boyfriend and girlfriend, and they did pretty well together. So the whole aspect of, you know, let's, you know.
Oh, the collaborating,
yeah.
no, not a problem at all. You know, then you just have the, you know, the little argument over whether you put this quarterback in or that quarterback in. And then, you know, if your quarterback wins, you know, that week, then you get to talk a little trash. But that's a little different than a head-to-head competition. So I was thinking that you meant, is it okay for them to be in the same league competing against each other?
Yeah.
No. But having the same team in a league, yeah.
Okay.
Because then that way you're collaborating on the same thing.
Okay. Let me get your advice on this. A lot of women, I believe, there's a lot more women coming into this league year after year. I've noticed that a lot of celebrity women are getting involved. You know, for those who are doing it for the very first time, I mean, what kind of advice would you give them?
First, I would say join a league where they do it automatic selection. You know, then that way you kind of get a team and you don't have to worry about, you know, really picking a bad team. Then read about, you know, the statistics. You know, if the quarterback has been in the league for a while, has he been a good quarterback for a while? Look at the matchups in the teams. And then also look at the injury report. Because if your player is injured, you're not getting any points.
Right. I went through that before. Twice.
Well, I mean, in this year's league, I had Tom Brady. That was devastating. I mean, here I finally get like the #1 quarterback. So, you know, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go through this league and at least have a good quarterback. And, you know, I can see what happens with my receivers and running backs. But I've got a solid quarterback, so I can count on some points. And then he goes down in the first quarter of the first game. So now I have like quarterback situation. You know, I have the bottom of the rung. So.
Okay. So what other advice can you give them? Like about, let's say, take that situation that you just had. I mean, dealing with, you know, a top player that you had, no matter if quarterback, receiver, running back.
Actually, I had 3.
Oh, geez. Okay. How did you deal with that situation?
Add, drop.
Okay.
Quickly. This league we haven't done too many trades. And, you know, trades are kind of interesting because, you know, you might give up a player that actually is going to have good stats for the season. But, you know, when you are willing to give them up, or when someone tells you, hey, can I get that player? And you're like, Because I was in a league one year, and somebody tried to trade somebody for Chad Johnson. And I was like, they really must not think I know what I'm doing. And that was when, you know, Carson Palmer was throwing to Chad and Houshmandzadeh every day, you know, every week. And, you know, they really wanted to get one of my receivers, and I was like, So, you know, it's important to know how well your players are and in comparison to other people's players.
Okay. I think that was great. So I think this is good information. There's a lot of women I know who would like to be more involved in fantasy sports instead of just being the typical fan. I think they're really coming in and enjoying the whole aspect of it. It's not just for the geeky guys anymore. So
It's not. What's his name? Stephen A. Smith wrote an article. You know, his editor.
for
His
ESPN
editor
magazine,
sent his editor sent him out to find out, well, why don't black people watch fantasy? Well, do black people actually participate in fantasy sports? And he found out that they do. And he thought that, oh, this is a dumb assignment. And just like there are a lot of black people that participate, there are a lot of women that participate. Because you can be anonymous on a fantasy league. When you sign up, you make up a name. It's not really your name unless you say a name, that identifies you as a woman. But a lot of times, if you join up a league and you don't know the people from the beginning, some of those people can actually be women, because I've done it.
Okay, cool. See, you're very, very interesting competitor. So, granted, we got one more game against each other, so be prepared.
Oh, that's okay.
Anyway, let's talk about Office Pool. We have a list of games here to talk about for the month of October. First off, Colts and Texans. I would like to make a note first. One of our guests that was supposed to be calling in on our show, her name was Kimberly. Unfortunately, she and others of Houston Texans were involved in the Gustav Hurricane and Hurricane Ike. They're still looking for help. You can go to the redcross.org or 1-800-RED CROSS. You can help out, donate. It's from blood to money, anything you can to help the people down in Houston, Texas. And reminder, there are still people who need help from Hurricane Katrina. So it's been 3 years, but still, they still need help. So again, redcross.org or 1-800-RED CROSS. Texans and Colts. It's kind of like one Mr. Langley Wiggins, who has yet to talk to me about on our first show. I surprised him with the Houston Texans defense being a very the type of sleeper team to look out for. Unfortunately, they are still asleep because they're just resting and in an 0-2 start. But in the Colts, though, is the real surprise, though.
The Colts are not good.
Why you say not good?
They're not precise. They're a level below where they've been. They're not a precision team. You can't count on them. However, between them and the Texans, they're a little more solid than the Texans.
Okay, so who are you going to go for?
The Colts.
Okay. I don't know. I kind of like in agreement with where you're saying how the Colts have been playing. The Texans need a big game, and this is the type of game they could try to rise up from. But I think this is also the type of game the Colts need to rise up from as well, because one, it's a divisional rival, divisional foe. So again, I would agree with you with the Colts there. Secondly, the second game, this will be interesting. The media will hype this up as Adrian Peterson versus Reggie Bush, but normally it's the Vikings and the Saints. Who do you think will win this one?
The Saints.
Why so?
Tavares Jackson is having a tough time. He could be yanked at any point.
Which he already is, so.
So, based on that, I'm going with the Saints.
Okay. Well, starting off.
Drew Brees and a running back.
Okay.
And receivers.
But the defense are kind of like, well, the Vikings got a better defense, though. And I think with Gus Frerotte coming in and replacing Jackson, I think, granted, that one game made him spark up and did some things, but the Saints is kind of that team that's just so iffy.
Well, we're talking about a quarterback who headbutted a wall.
That was a decade ago, though. But the thing,
and he's been a journeyman ever since.
Well, because true. But I think he fits well in this Vikings. I really think the Vikings. I think they were relying on Tavares Jackson so much, thinking that he can lead a veteran team. But I just think that, this team is in that, I think hype-wise, they need is like, hey, look, we need a veteran leadership, and Gus Frerotte has that veteran leadership.
He'll calm them down, but they're. I think the Saints have a better team.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say the Vikings will win this.
Okay.
Now here's an interesting game: Patriots and Chargers. This could have been, the Tom Brady, Sean Merriman, the Chargers defense, Patriots offense. This would have been great, but now it's okay. Matt Castle against the Chargers defense without Sean Merriman. So how do you see this game coming about?
Chargers.
Oh, why you say that?
Chris Chambers, who I have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, who you?
Wait, Antonio Gates, who you have. Pretty decent defense.
Mm-hmm.
And the Patriots are imploding.
True.
I mean, their offense is bad, the defense is bad. Randy Moss has just not gone off yet, but other than that, they are pretty bad.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with the Chargers. The last 2 games, they've been scoring over 30 points or nearing 40.
Oh, that's San Diego.
Yeah.
I mean, the Denver game, that was awesome.
Right. And you have the Patriots who are kind of showing the fact that, they are not the same team without Tom Brady. And I really think that, granted, I felt like even last year, I felt this team it's an aging team, and it's kind of showing. So a game like against the Chargers, who were very physical, I think that they will take this one. So yeah, I kind of agree with you with the Chargers. Cowboys and Cardinals. Granted, this is that nice little Tex-Mex type of game. So who do you see winning that one?
Unfortunately, the Cowboys. And I want them to lose, really, because I'm a Redskins fan.
Right.
But I think the Cowboys will beat the Cardinals.
Would like to say the Cowboys, but I really think this is a type of game the Cardinals really need. And here's the reason why. I think that you have too much good of a talent with Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden to be, you got that nice setup between those 2 top receivers against the Cowboys, Terrell Owens and Jason Witten. You have Kurt Warner against Tony Romo. Both defense are kind of similar.
Yeah.
Their running game is, granted, I think the Cowboys have the better running game with Marion Barber. And I think he's
and Felix Jones,
which they still kind of have that nice combination where they had when Julius Jones was the that secondary back.
Right.
But Cardinals with Edgerrin James, I think that he just got to get over this inconsistency hump of of doing well and not doing well every time. And I really think this is a type of game that they can really take charge and really prove themselves, and maybe even admit the fact that, hey, we are a good containing team. We are not the walkover they think. I'm going to say it with the Cardinals. Lastly, and I hope you guys have done this, register to vote. Some of the ads that you see during the show is encouraging you all to register to vote on November 4th. And this last one is highly, surprisingly important. Who do you think will win between Obama and McCain?
I want Obama to win. I think Obama will win. And I pray that he does.
Any reason why?
Obama has more of a kind of collaborative working relationship with people in the community, with leaders, with people that are legislators and regulators and things like that. Whereas McCain has the this is what needs to be done, and I'm right, and I'm not going to pay attention to what you have to say because I'm right. And that doesn't leave any room for change, or for doing things a different way, or for having people included in the decision-making process.
Okay. Well, everyone keeps forgetting, granted I have 2 people here, but they keep forgetting there is a third factor that has been noticed for the last 2 elections.
Those crazy people on the independents.
Besides that, but also the fact of the voting machines. That's the very key thing that a lot of people got to worry about, because will they work? Will we have to deal with another Florida? Will we deal with another Ohio? Will we have to deal with another state that has problems?
Will we deal with the D.C.?
Maybe.
We just had, election in D.C. and the voting machines didn't work.
Right.
It's funny because when we're talking about other countries, we want to send the UN peacekeepers to make sure that their voting goes, correctly. But yet nobody wants to do that for us. And actually, it would be a good time to have the UN come and monitor.
Yes, that would be smart. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up by saying, please, America, it's time for a change. Barack Obama will take the United States presidency. Carol, thank you for
Brian.
coming. And again, please, folks, register to vote. It's very important. Anyway, can't forget our fantasy sports. Actually, this is the first in honor of a fellow viewer, her by the name of Alicia. We're doing something new here for this season. It's the Fantasy Sports World Boy of the Month, yes. And his name is Gerard Douglas. He's a local DJ and model. You can look more on his MySpace page. So anyway, that's all the time we have. And remember, folks, please register to vote and vote on November 4th. My time is out. Peace.